Hi, everybody. Dr. Gustin here. And I just wanted to talk you through the week one materials and use it as a model for all the weeks that we're going to do this semester. So, by now, you should have already looked at these 3 points on the very first page, our course homepage, and gotten the textbook, printed out your syllabus, listened to the syllabus review that I have right here, and notice that the office hour link will be here for the entire semester. So now you want to move on to step 3, which is go to week 1, human biology, and that's right here. So I'm going to click on there. Now what you're going to notice on this left side is above this line is going to be the weeks that either the current week or the weeks that you've already finished. If I start posting them sooner, like for example, if I post week 2, I'll post it below this line just to reduce confusion. You don't have to work ahead, but every once in a while I get somebody who wants to work ahead and I try to get the materials on a little bit earlier. Also, notice all of these things are things you'll be using. Occasionally I'll have announcements. You'll receive those announcements by email, but you can always look back there and see, past announcements. Discussion link is right here, and then you can click here to get your grades. So I'm going to go to this week 1, and you're going to have this video that you're going to click on, what I'm making right now. And every week we're going to have the objectives. And I have the objectives listed here. These are the same objectives that you'll find in your weekly study guide. So we'll talk about that in a second. Also notice that each section I have these little mark reviewed things. What you can do, you don't have to use those at all, but when I was an online student, I always seemed to forget, like, what did I finish? Where am I? And so what you can do is you can click on those and it will change it to reviewed if you've looked at it. So it just gives you a way to keep track of what you've looked at and what you haven't. You don't have to use these, but they're there for your convenience. I'll always have a what's due when section, and you can see here for week number 1 we have a discussion, and that's going to be worth 3 bonus points. We have lecture quiz. It's also worth 3 bonus points. Week 1 is kind of a little bit lighter than the other weeks. And then you have a real lab quiz that's worth a real 20 points. And remember that all of our assignments are going to be due, or most of our assignments will be due on Sundays at the end of the week. So this happens to be February 7th, 1 minute before midnight. That does not mean that you want to do all your work on Sunday at 10 p.m. It's going to take several hours to complete all this material. Remember, in a normal lecture class, you would have had about 3 hours of lecture and 2 hours of lab. So just getting your materials together and filling out your handouts should take you at least 5 hours a week. And then you still have to study, review, and be ready for the next week. So plan ahead. You don't want to do this all at once. Each week we're going to have a study guide. And so you're going to click on the link right here and get the study guide. I would print those out. Make sure you have some fresh ink in your printer. So each week you're going to get those. They're usually about 10 pages, I would say 5 pages double-sided. They might have a lot of pictures in them and whatnot. You don't have to print them out in color. You can always go back and look at the color pictures in the one that's posted. But I would definitely print those out, and you're going to walk through it. In fact, I'll open up this study guide and I'll show you what it looks like. So you're going to print these out, and each study guide. In fact, in the first one, I give you a little rundown on how to use the study guide and how do I study for lecture quizzes and exams. A lot of people ask me that question. But here's those objectives that we mentioned already. What you're going to do is you're going to go into your textbook and you're going to look at these little look for these little arrow questions. And it says, review the characteristics of life. So in your textbook, section 1.1, it's called the characteristics of life. And you're going to write this information that you find that it asks you for right down here. The end of each one of these sections, I'll have vocabulary. So fill in your vocabulary words. And then sometimes frequently I'll have questions at the end of each one of these sections to just test your understanding, sometimes I use them to clarify points. Right here, metabolism. There's a lot of definitions for metabolism. I don't love the one that's in your book, so I kind of gave you a hint here and came up with my own definition of metabolism that I wrote that I thought was a little bit clearer. And so you can answer these questions. The questions, the ones that say question, if you go to the end of this document, you will find answers to them. Answers to questions in this, shouldn't say PowerPoint, should say document. And answers to questions in this document. And there's the answer to question 1. You can find that right there. So use those. Those questions are great kind of prompts to say the kind of things I'm going to ask you on tests. So I wouldn't necessarily memorize the exact question, but I would know the concepts in those questions. The questions that have these little check marks are actually in your textbook, and it says this one in particular is on page 6 in your textbook, so you can go find that information. Here's the next section, how do humans fit in the natural world, and here's underlined is this actual section in the book where you'll find this information. So write your information in there. There's another question. There's some vocabulary. And you're going to work through this whole thing. Occasionally, on something that I think is a little bit confusing, I'll put a video. Sometimes I'll make the videos. Sometimes there'll be things that I find on the internet. So you can listen to the video and that might help you with that information. So you're going to complete this entire study guide, and that's going to be what you're going to use to study for lecture quizzes and lecture exams. I also put a couple of the questions from the end of the chapter that would be relevant to you guys, so you can look at those too if you want just to quiz yourself. So that's the study guide. So once you do the study guide, you need to study that information. You need to review it, make sure you understand it, and then there's a lecture quiz. So you're just going to click on this link right here, and you're going to take that lecture quiz. Now, because it's the first one, I gave you a lot of information. In this one in particular, it says, since scientific methods covered in both lab and lecture, you may want to complete the lab and the lab quiz before taking this lecture quiz. So that's something you might want to do. You don't have to, but sometimes I'll give you some pointers on what I would recommend. Typically what we'll do is for lecture quizzes, not for lab quizzes, but for lecture quizzes, they're worth 10 points, and I'll give you 2 tries at the quiz. Most of the time with lecture quizzes, there'll be multiple choice questions. The reason I do mostly multiple choice questions is because you can get your grade right away and see how you did and decide if you want to take it again. If there's questions that you fill in answers or write a short essay, short answer or something, I have to grade it by hand before you see your grade. So you'll take this quiz. It tells you on here that it's 10 multiple choice questions. You'll have 10 minutes to take the quiz. You have 2 opportunities to take the quiz. What I recommend is you study, and then you take the quiz. Now, these quizzes are not proctored, so you can sit there with your notes and look up the answers. A minute per question, you may or may not have time to look up the answer, so you need to be very familiar with your notes at the very least. On top of that, this material is the same material that will be on your exam number 1. So at some point, you do need to commit this to memory. So I highly recommend that right away with the lecture quiz, you practice trying to remember as much as you can and don't just rely on looking things up. So you take the quiz, and after you're done taking the quiz, it will tell you your score. You'll see a screen that will tell you your score. If you didn't get a perfect grade, what I recommend doing is going back to the material, reviewing it, and taking the quiz again. Now, the way I design the quizzes usually is I take a big pool of questions, and it randomly picks 10 questions out of the pool. So you may or may not get the same questions on the 2 quizzes. The higher of the 2 quizzes will be recorded in your grades, and both of those quizzes are due by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. You don't have to take the quiz 2 times, but you'll just get the grade on the first quiz. In order to see how you did on the quiz, you can get your grade on a multiple choice quiz right away. If I need to do some grading by hand, you'll get your grade once I do the grading. So sometimes you don't get the grade right away. Once the due date has passed, once that Sunday at 11:59 p.m. is passed, you are able to look at the quizzes and see how you did. And the way you do that is you're going to go up to this My Grades and you're going to click on that. And what's going to happen is, oh, here's that lecture quiz right there. Okay. Now, and so what you're going to be able to do is you're going to click on this, the name of that lecture quiz, and it's going to bring you to this screen. Now, under calculated grade over here, there's going to be a number, and that's the score of your quiz. You can click on that number and it will show you the actual quiz. So you will be able to learn from your mistakes on your quizzes after the due date of the quiz. You'll be able to use these quizzes to study for your exams. So you'll always be able to get that. I'm just going to show you that one more time. And I think I wrote this in the syllabus how to find this too, because it's not obvious. So remember, you went to My Grades, you ended up with this list of grades, and this will get bigger and bigger as the semester goes on. So far, I've got 100% in the class and a total of 20 points. And so when you want your scores, you click on the name of the assignment. It's going to bring you to this screen. Once it's graded, there'll be a number right here. You click on that number and you'll actually see the quiz. Okay, I'm going to go back to week 1. Let's see. So you're going to do the study guide, your lecture quiz. We also have lab and the lab quiz. Right here is the lab handout. You're going to print that out. You're going to do that handout. And once you're comfortable with that, you're going to take the lab quiz. And you're going to do it the same way. Just click on the name and you'll take the lab quiz. Now, most of the quizzes in lab are things that are directly off your handout because I pretty much want to know, did you do the lab? Did you get the main points? If you have any problems or any questions with those, just email me and I'll try to help you out. The last thing we have in week 1 is a discussion, and you can click this, the name of the title right here, discussion. It tells you what you're going to be doing right here, but you can also just click on that, and for whatever reason that just didn't work, so I'm going to go back, but it will. Oh, there it is. You can get to the discussions right here too. So if you get to that weird link and it doesn't work, so you're gonna click on discussion. And I can click on the name right there, and you can create a thread. And I already created a thread. You're going to create a thread right here, and it tells you what I'm asking you to do. So in that, it tells you your subject's going to be your name, and you're going to give me a little bit of information. Name as you like to be called, your academic program, any special hobbies, etc. And then you're going to respond to 2 classmates. So once you've done that, you'll see your thread right here. So I put mine in there already. So if you want to respond to me, let's see, I guess you just click my name and you can see my post I put here as an example. And then you can reply to me and say something there if you want. So I'm hoping you guys respond to each other a little bit and we get to know each other just a little bit. I'm going back to week 1. And then you'll be done. So this week we have a 3-point discussion for bonus points. We have a 3-point lecture quiz for bonus points. Next week they'll be worth 10 points. And we have a real 20-point lab quiz. So let me know if you're having any questions with that. Good luck this week. You're going to find that this pattern will repeat itself weekly. So please let me know if you're having any trouble.